Please join me in welcoming the host of Southern California's longest continuously running daily talk program, AirTalk, and your host for the evening, Larry Mantle.
Thank you so much. Great to have you here. What a turnout. This is wonderful. I've been hearing that the 4th District, as important as this race is, had not been getting much media attention. And clearly, it's not for a lack of interest on the part of the public. This is wonderful to see all of you out here to learn about the two candidates. If you've already made up your mind which of the two candidates you support, that's great. But my hope is that for those of you who are still deciding who you think is the better representative for this important district, that you'll come away tonight feeling like I have my person. I know who I'm going to vote for on November 8th. So John gave just the rundown of what we're doing. This, as he said, is going to air tomorrow on AirTalk and our live stream that's happening tonight. So thank you for coming out. Let's get started. Let me bring out first Member of Congress who represents a district that includes San Pedro, South Los Angeles, and parts of the 4th District that's at stake here, Janice Hahn. All right. All right, so you brought your fans here. This is great. Our other candidate has been longtime Chief Deputy for Don Knabe, the current Supervisor, Steve Napolitano. All right, we're going to get started here momentarily, and I just want to reinforce what John said. Response that's civil is great. We love to have response as long as it doesn't impede the flow of the debate. I'd ask, please, no booing or hissing or stuff like that, because if other people agree with you that what one of the candidates said was not a good thing, that'll show up at the poll. So please, positive energy, even if you're loyal to one of the two candidates here. We're going to get started with our recording of our broadcast just as soon as I get the heads up from Tony Federico. All right, very good. 3, 2, 1. From the Cerritos Library, this is AirTalk on the Road. It's a debate between the finalists to succeed Don Knabe as the 4th District LA County Supervisor. Great to have you with us. I'm Larry Mantle. The LA County Board of Supervisors is one of the country's most powerful elected bodies. It controls a nearly $30 billion budget, healthcare, mental health services, social services, children's and family services, housing, parks, county jails, all controlled by the board. Now, the 4th District extends from Marina del Rey South through El Segundo, all the South Bay beach cities, curves to take in the Palos Verdes Peninsula, San Pedro, Torrance, and Long Beach. Then it heads back north through Lakewood, Cerritos, Diamond Bar, Artesia, and Whittier. And we can't forget beautiful Avalon on Santa Catalina Island, also a part of the 4th District. Nearly 2 million people live within this district. So this is why no one leaves the board unless you're termed out. And that is the case with Don Knabe, who's represented this district for 20 years. The November 8th runoff features Knabe's longtime chief deputy, Steve Napolitano. He's also a former member of the Manhattan Beach City Council. He's opposed by outgoing member of Congress, Janice Hahn. Janet Hahn served in the House for 6 years after a decade on the LA City Council. So this is a nonpartisan office, but Congresswoman Hahn is a Democrat. Mr. Napolitano, like Supervisor Knabe, is registered Republican. Let's go right into our debate. Ms. Hahn, you've held elective office for many years. During that time, you've developed strong ties to labor. Looking at your website, you have tons of endorsements from unions. But the board already has 3 very labor-friendly members. So, and you're going to need, along with your colleagues, to direct negotiations with county unions on contentious pensions and benefit payments. Why should voters choose another supervisor who would owe so much to labor as yourself?
Well, thank you, Larry, first of all, for having us here tonight. Well, first off, I'm never going to apologize for the strong support that I have from the working men and women in the County of Los Angeles. And I am proud to be supported by our sheriff's deputies, our firefighters, our laborers, our lifeguards, our nurses, our teachers. I'm proud of that. But I'm also supported by a number of business groups. Supported by chambers of commerce. And they've endorsed me because they know I will make the correct fiscal decision when it comes to those issues. And there's a lot of big issues and problems as you laid out. There's no reason that I wouldn't want the County of Los Angeles to be absolutely fiscally solvent. And by the way, our county employees and union members also want the County of Los Angeles to be fiscally strong and sound for many years to come.
So you feel confident that you would be able to represent the residents of the county first, taxpayers, even if that ends up antagonizing public employees who've supported your election?
Well, first of all, a lot of our public employees are residents of LA County. Many of them live in the 4th District, so to say that our employees aren't residents is not really accurate. And I think my record shows that while on the City Council of Los Angeles, I negotiated many contracts with our labor unions, and I always found the best way was to bring everyone to the table, to bring our business people, our labor people, our contract people, and find the best solution for everyone. But I'm certainly not going to apologize for having strong support of our working men and women.
So, Mr. Napolitano, let me ask you the flip side of that then. So she has the support of public employee unions. She's going to be able potentially to have a connection with them as they deal with any sort of fiscal issues involving pensions or benefits. What do you think you would bring to that process if you were elected to the position?
Thanks, Larry. Again, thanks for having us here. And from the very beginning, from my days on the City Council, I've been very fiscally responsible. But I've also been very fair to labor. We never had any issues in Manhattan Beach because we got along, we got to the table, we talked, we negotiated, we worked things out, and we got good agreements through that. But we also maintained sustainable budgets. We held a AAA bond rating, the highest bond rating you can get. In California, we were one of only 3 cities in the state to have that. And I've got great relationships with our unions in LA County as well. And a lot of those folks, while the unions themselves aren't supporting me, a lot of their workers are. I've talked to them, they've come up to me, and they're supporting me because they know that they need fiscal responsibility to maintain the standards that we've had so far. And that was, unlike the city of LA, where my opponent comes from, which gave away 25% raises in 2007 during the recession, LA County didn't have to furlough or lay off a single employee during the recession. We didn't have any budget cuts. And we've got a lot of different cities during the recession that had to cut budgets, had to cut workers. And so we just need to...
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, I just need, Ms. Hahn, you want to give a quick response to what he said about City of LA and its budget?
Well, for the 10 years that I was on the City Council, we had a balanced budget every single year, and we also did not lay off any employees. I worked very hard to make sure in the midst of an economic downturn that the last thing we would do is lay off people who so desperately needed their job. And we did everything we could to keep our workers, to keep fiscally sound, and to balance the budget every single year.
Mr. Napolitano.
Well, it's correct that by law, all municipal governments have to show a balanced budget. Whether it's actually balanced, though, is something else. And the City of LA had a structural deficit for many years and still does until Prop 30 was passed. And if Prop 30 goes away, and several of the measures or components of it are supposed to, the course and sales tax ends at the end of this year, it's going to be a hit to the city of LA, and they'll still have that structural deficit. And that is due to the out-of-reach pensions and salaries that they've been approving over the years.
Let's move on. Mr. Napolitano, a lot has changed in the 2 decades since your boss was elected to the board. The Republican Party has dwindled in LA County. Why should voters support someone such as yourself who holds GOP economic views when the county is moving in a progressive direction?
Larry, I am a fiscal conservative, social progressive. I've never said anything different. I'm not running as a Republican. My approach to county government, my approach to local government has always been nonpartisan and continues to be. I am a problem solver. I'm not running as a partisan politician. I have been asked many times to run for partisan office. I've always declined because I don't want to get partisanship in the way of solving problems.
Ms. Hahn, this is a nonpartisan office. You are a high-profile Democrat as a member of Congress. How would you conduct yourself related to party affiliation, party activities, if you were elected to this position?
Right, and again, I'm not ashamed to be a Democrat, but you know what? I think people are tired of partisan politics, and I just am leaving what many consider the most politically partisan gridlocked Congress that we've had in a long time. And I think most people want us to put our partisan politics aside and solve problems. They want us to find consensus. They want us to find common ground. They want us to work together. And I think my record in Congress particularly is I was known to work across the aisle. I was known to co-sponsor legislation with my Republican colleagues. I was one of the Democrats that had the most legislation that was co-sponsored with Republicans. So I like getting along with people. I think partisan politics may have its place somewhere, but certainly not on the County Board of Supervisors.
We have several questions from members of our KPCC audience. Let's hear the first one.
Hi, this is Scott from Cerritos. I'm the CEO of the Cerritos Regional Chamber of Commerce. Currently, this is not a very business-friendly county. What are your plans to help grow the business community in the 4th District?
Mr. Napolitano?
Sure, I've actually done a lot of work to make LA County more business friendly, and that is by initiating with Supervisor Knabe the Business Concierge Program. That's a program I brought forward to him, a one-stop shop created in the county now, which didn't exist before, which creates one person for people to come to get their businesses up and running quicker and get those jobs going quicker. Before, if you wanted to open a restaurant, you had to navigate 20 different departments to do that. Now you go to one person, that person navigates those 20 departments for you. So that's one way of doing it. Also, though, what I did on City Council, what I want to do as supervisor is have business summits. We do not talk to business enough. We dictate from the top down. I want to have a conversation with business, understand what their frustrations are, have staff there, have myself there, have leadership there, and find out what really is going to make LA County more business friendly. And that's what I've done with the LAEDC too, the LA Economic Development Corporation. I talk with them on a regular basis on how to improve things, and that's why I've also been able to work to reduce filming costs across LA County, so that we can keep our filming here.
Before I turn to Ms. Hahn on this, can you be specific about looking at businesses in the county now, something that's truly under the supervisor's control, something that you would want to try and implement if you were elected, specific?
A couple of different things. One would be to expand upon the Business Concierge Program. The other would be to lower fees so that these folks can get approvals. Also, something that I want to put forward is to go online and get your business license renewed online, go online and get your permits quicker. We do not do enough things online. That's where the world has gone, and yet we're still the LA County of the 20th century. I want to make it LA County of the 21st century. We should have, LA County should be as easy to use as Amazon for businesses to get them what they need.
All right. So Ms. Hahn, same question for you, as we heard from our listener, Scott, asking about making the county more business friendly.
I spent the last 5.5 years in Congress as a member of the Small Business Committee. And I spent a lot of time in LA County talking to small businesses and trying to cut bureaucratic red tape at the federal government, bringing the Small Business Administration out to LA County to work with businesses. And I just spent today at lunch talking to about 12 people who have business interests in LA County and hearing some of the frustrations that they do have with LA County. As the caller suggests, it's not very business friendly. So I really hope to take my experience working with small businesses and cutting red tape, making the permitting process easier, helping them to navigate the County of Los Angeles as it relates to their business. I'd also like to really focus on connecting small businesses to the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. The international trade industry is a huge industry, which many of our small businesses have not had access to, and I would like to do more Trade Connect workshops where we actually help small businesses learn the ins and outs of the international trade industry. So we can make LA County a lot more business friendly, and I want to help do that.
Let me just reintroduce, in case you're just tuning in, we're coming your way from the beautiful Cerritos Library, which is in the 4th Supervisorial District for Los Angeles County. We're getting a chance to hear for the 2 finalists for this position, Steve Napolitano and Janice Hahn. They're joining us in front of a packed room here at the library. It's wonderful to see the turnout and the interest in this very important seat. Nearly 2 million residents, huge budget that the county controls, and very important services to county residents. The South Bay City's Council of Governments has come out against the half-cent sales tax increase in Metro's Measure M. The measure would fund the long-range build-out of Metro's transportation plan. However, the executive director of the South Bay Council, Jackie Bacharach, says local transit projects don't get funded until 2040. When she says local, she means the South Bay, and she says that shortchanges their residents. How will you vote on Measure M, and do you think it treats this district equitably? Ms. Hahn.
I know Jackie Baccarat, and I know so many cities who are a part of this, and almost all of the cities in the 4th District are very concerned because Measure R that we passed a few years ago called out certain projects for the 4th District, and then when they didn't fulfill their promise, when Measure M came along, the language on the ballot does not indicate that those projects should have gone first or should at least been prioritized. I was upset about the ballot language. However, I plan to support Measure M because it will raise $120 billion. It will create over 500,000 good jobs in the transportation industry. But I'll tell you, it is unacceptable to tell this part of the county that their projects won't get funded until 2045 or some 2055. That's unacceptable, and if I'm elected and I'm a member of the Metro Board, I will guarantee that we will fast track the projects in the 4th District. And I will look for private funding to come in and leverage with the Measure M money to move these projects much faster.
All right, thank you, Mr. Napolitano.
Larry, I am all for transportation improvements. I am all for speeding things up. I'm Supervisor Knabe's alternate to the South Bay Council of Governments. But it's not just the South Bay Council of Governments, it's also the Southeast Council of Governments. So you've got 43 cities out of the county's 88 cities who have taken an opposed position to this. There are some individual ones that support it, but for different reasons. But in terms of what the cities out here get, they don't get their fair share. This is a City of LA-driven measure. Make no mistake about it. This is what Mayor Garcetti is pushing out there for his political future, but it is shortchanging the 4th District. It is unfair to the 4th District. We don't get our fair share. They're going to pay more in taxes and get less back for it. It really should be reworked. If it passes, I'm going to fight tooth and nail to get our fair share. I'm going to fight tooth and nail to speed those projects up. But the reality is there's only going to be so much that can be done to make that happen. So I'm not voting in favor of Measure M because I'm standing with my cities. I'm running for supervisor. I'm running for supervisor of the 4th district. Until we get our fair share, then I'm not going to support Measure M.
Right. Let's hear from another KPCC listener.
This is Raghavan from Cerritos. How much money have you raised during your campaign and from whom? And how will this influence you if you win?
All right. I think Mr. Napolitano, I start, yeah, because I'm alternating who I start with, so you start this one.
Sure. My campaign has raised hundreds of thousands of dollars in small donations from individuals from one end of this district to the other. And I've also put a lot of my own money in. And I did that because at the beginning of this campaign, everyone backed out because my opponent decided to jump in. I did not back out. This means too much. So I made the conscious decision, my family made the conscious decision that we were going to give voters a choice. And that's what we've done. We've invested in the 4th district, we've invested in the people, we've invested in the county of LA, and so I'm very happy to say that I'm not going to be beholden to any special interests when elected. I'm just beholden to the people who elected me.
How much have you given to your campaign, and what percentage of that is the total contributions to fund your campaign?
I haven't looked at what the percentages are. How much you've put in? $2 million.
You put $2 million in out of a total of ballpark total fundraising.
1.4 for each time.
Okay, in addition to your $2 million, so 3.4.
No. It's 1.5 was raised, 1.4 was raised for the primary, 1.4 is being raised for the general.
Okay, 1.4 for the general,
Yes,
and
we have
that includes your contribution or not? Your contribution is on top.
That includes my contribution.
Your contribution. Okay, all right, very good. Ms. Hahn, same question for you.
Wow, I didn't know you put $2 million of your own money in. So I'm not a millionaire, and so I've had to raise every dollar, and I have raised it from numerous small contributors, large contributors. I have an online contribution. People go on and donate $5, $10, $25. So I raised $1.4 million in the primary, and I've raised about $800,000 for the general.
All right. I just want to ask, please, it's great, all this energy we have here tonight, but when you shout out things, it's a little distracting for all of us up here. So please, be enthusiastic, but please don't shout out things about the candidates. I appreciate it very much. The Men's Central Jail is sometimes called the largest mental health facility in the country. What would you do to improve the jail's overall operations, not just mental health, but overall, and also the mental health services to inmates at county jail? Ms. Hahn?
Yeah, I've toured the jail myself and was pretty horrified at the conditions that we are incarcerating people under. It's really unsafe for the inmates, and it's really unsafe for the deputy sheriffs. So I would first support modernizing our jail to make it a safer and a much more appealing facility, really both for the inmates and also for our county deputies. I don't think we should be arresting those who have mental health challenges in the county of Los Angeles. Incarcerating them in jail without getting them the treatment that they need, I think is really less than who we are as people. I know we can do better than that, and I want to make sure that we can really get mental health services and treatment to those who need it. And I feel very, very strongly about really spending more money on mental health workers, more money on those who can go with the sheriffs out when they come in contact with someone and feel like arrest is the only thing they can do. I want to give an option to these people and divert them from our jails to a place where we can really help them with their challenges.
Mr. Napolitano.
Thank you, Larry. We need to tear down Men's Central Jail, no doubt about it.
Did you say tear it down?
Tear it down. It needs to be rebuilt. Tear down Men's Central Jail. It's a terrible facility. It's unsafe for the inmates. It's unsafe for the sheriffs. Unsafe for everybody that works there. It was built at a time where they were building dungeons, it seems, because it certainly isn't a jail. So tear it down. We need to build a new one. There is a plan right now to do that. It's at a very high cost, though, and for when we're talking about mental illness, though, we need to separate those who are mentally ill away from the inmates and give them treatment in a separate facility nearby. We're not going to stop arresting people who are a danger to themselves or others, but if they're being arrested and they have mental illness, they need to be separated from the rest of the inmate population, because that just cycles folks in and out of the system without giving them treatment. They go back on the street, they don't get the treatment.
How would you fund that?
There is money there now. We have an Office of Diversion. We have established an Office of Diversion in the county. It's up and running now. We need to make sure that the outcomes are measured, though, and that the next Board of Supervisors that's going to oversee this and see the continuation of it is making sure that it's doing what it needs to do. But we still need a separate facility, though, to do those. We're giving that treatment in the jail now. It's not the place to give the treatment. We need to give it in a separate facility next to the Men's Central Jail.
All right. A report last year showed that LA County spent about $1 billion total responding to homelessness. About $100 million is targeted in this latest budget to provide services to the homeless population. I want to ask each of you how much you think it would take to really make serious inroads into housing, to where you'd really see the difference on the streets. And not just housing, but supportive services for homeless county residents. So realistically, what would that take? And potentially, where would those funds come from? Mr. Napolitano.
Homelessness is the issue in LA County right now, and deservedly so. You got 47,000 people living on the streets. We need to address this issue. It's the right thing to do. It's the moral thing to do. How to do it is going to be the issue. In terms of funding and what that's going to look like, we need to have public-private partnerships to tackle this problem. Right now, I've worked on affordable housing in Marina Del Rey, where we've been able to establish a 15% set aside for affordable housing for new multi-unit construction out there. And I've also worked to get $670,000 to the South Bay Council of Governments to fund the PATH program that's going to address homelessness in the South Bay. But it's going to take a lot more resources. Our nonprofits are overwhelmed right now, and they need more. So what I was disappointed in, right, it's great that we have Measure M for some folks on the ballot. We have Measure A, the Parks Bond, on the ballot, or parcel tax rather, on the ballot. But really, I was disappointed that we don't have something on the ballot this November to address homelessness. And
Back to the specifics, how much do you think it would cost?
I'm getting right there. Well, I'll tell you what. We have Prop 30, which was approved by the voters, has a coercent sales tax that sunsets at the end of this year. I think we need to take that coercent sales tax, have a county measure on the ballot for people to decide if this is really the issue that is most important to them, that they will help fund it by adding that coercent sales tax back in. That is just going to end at the end of the year. Put it back in. You can raise $355 million a year to do that, and that's where the county comes in and works with our nonprofits and work with developers to build housing and provide those supportive services. And the thing about it in Marina Del Rey, where we own the property, we take a cut off the rent, but we also make rent, and we can reinvest that in supportive services for those that need housing, that have mental illness and addiction problems.
Ms. Hahn.
Yeah, we have 47,000 people that are sleeping on our streets every night. You know, close to 4,000 of those are veterans. We have women and children. We did not get to this point overnight, and I think everyone will agree, homelessness in LA County is the worst that it has ever been. It is not just down on Skid Row anymore. It is in everybody's community, and we have got to figure out how to address it. I'm encouraged that there seems to be more money that's being earmarked both by the City of Los Angeles, the County of Los Angeles, the state is looking to pass a $2 billion bond. There are some measures on the ballot in the City of Los Angeles HHH and JJJ that would actually allow the city to borrow $1 to $2 billion over 10 years to build housing. We've got to first prevent homelessness. We've got to do rapid rehousing. We have to have homes that people can afford. And then we have to make sure that we deal with the mental health issue that many of our homeless has. I'm thinking this is in the billions of dollars that will take to truly address homelessness. Although I read a study that said there will always be 14,000 people who are homeless in LA County because of the lack of affordable housing in LA County. And so a lot of this money has got to go to constructing single unit apartments, so for the rapid rehousing, as well as homes and apartments that people can afford.
Mr. Napolitano.
I agree on the affordable housing part because you've got a less than 3% vacancy rate across LA County. But the question was, how is it going to be paid for?
No, I think you want to know how much.
How much and where would those funds come
And where
from?
were those funds come from?
Yeah.
I didn't hear where those funds were going to come from.
Well, the state is doing a $2 billion bond issue. The HHS on the city of Los Angeles, it's a general obligation bond. It allows the city to borrow $1 to $2 billion to fund construction of affordable housing. The city of Los Angeles has already set aside $138 million, and I think the county has set aside $100 million. I'm supportive of the millionaire's tax. That'll impact you. That will tax millionaires to help us raise money. So there are
Okay.
revenue streams.
Yeah, Mr. Napolitano.
The millionaire's tax failed miserably in polling. So did the pot tax. Actually, the pot tax was a bad idea to begin with because
What about millionaires who smoke
It
pot?
wouldn't raise. I'll let you know when I find one. But no, I'm talking about that core sales tax, putting it before folks because that's really how it's going to be done. The $2 billion that the state is going to be spending is not going to just be spent in LA County, and it's for mental health housing. It's not going to be for everybody here. It's not going to be for rapid rehousing. And the $100 million that the city has said they'll set aside have set aside about $16 million of that. It hasn't materialized. The county has set aside about $150 million, but that's not enough, folks. And those are one-time monies. We need a 15-year look at this problem in terms of funding to get it solved. We're not going to do it using one-time money.
All right. Let me just reintroduce where we're at, which is the Cerritos Library. You're listening to a debate, District 4, LA County Board of Supervisors, a district that begins right here on the southeast part of LA County. It includes such communities as Whittier, Diamond Bar, Artesia, Cerritos, comes through Lakewood, Long Beach, Palos Verdes Peninsula, Torrance, and comes up through all the South Bay cities, all the way up El Segundo to Marina del Rey. We're talking with the two finalists, Janice Hahn, Steve Napolitano, who were running for the seat in which Don Knabe was termed out after 20 years serving the 4th District. You're listening to a special AirTalk and our debate on the road here on 89.3 KPCC and the KPCC smartphone app. Let's listen to another question from a KPCC listener.
This is Samantha from Cerritos. Mental health is becoming an increasingly important issue in the wake of tragedies occurring throughout the country. What are your plans to ensure that the county continues to fund mental health beyond the Mental Health Services Act?
And I'm trying to remember who I think I asked you first last time. So Ms. Hahn, you're first this one.
Well, this is clearly such a problem, and it certainly adds to our homeless population. We know many people on the streets have mental health challenges, and this will be a priority for me. I know in my heart that the County of Los Angeles, at its core, is a safety net. County of Los Angeles exists to make sure that people who have reached the end of their rope, both mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, don't fall through the cracks. And that's really what LA County is at its core, and that is very much who I am and what my heart is. So that's going to be a key priority for me. One of the things I would like to get LA County to invest in is mental health professionals on our campuses, on our high school campuses. I really think we're asking too much of our teachers out there to always be able to diagnose a student who might have mental health challenges. They have enough to do. But I would like to see mental health professionals on our high school campuses, because many times we're going to be able to catch those folks who are starting to slide if we can get them in high school and get them the treatment that they need.
Would that be a role for the county, though, or would that have to originate at the districts themselves?
Well, I think that the districts probably will say they can't fund it. And I know the County of Los Angeles certainly partners with our school districts and nonprofits, and I just think that's something that the county could advocate for, and if need be, help invest in. We lost school nurses a long time ago. Most of us were raised with a school nurse on our campus, and we know we don't see those. So this is just an area about preventing people from falling through the cracks and preventing them from one day becoming homeless. So I think this is a good investment.
Mr. Napolitano.
Thanks, Larry. I actually sit on the board of a nonprofit that provides these kinds of services at the school level and also in the workplace. And they are great, but it all comes down to funding. Because as much as I want to provide those services, if we don't have the dollars to do it, then it doesn't happen. And the funding for these programs have faced severe cuts from the state. They have not put back in what they cut during the recession. 2/3 of the county's budget is pass-through dollars from state and federal government for mandated programs. And those go to contracts with nonprofits also to provide things like mental health services. So we need someone fighting for legislation and improvements at our state and federal level in getting the money here now. Because the county doesn't fund that on their own. They get their state and federal government to do that, and we need more funding because those cuts have not been replaced. We need someone advocating for the county, for our schools, for our children, to get help, but we're not going to do that by ourselves. We need to bring in the state and convince them to backfill those funds that were previously cut.
Do you want to just briefly say something? Yeah.
I was just going to say, you know what? We need to first and foremost believe that that's the right thing to do. And once you believe it's the right thing to do, you're going to fight for funding. We know that if we begin to get the mentally ill, challenged inmates out of the county hospital, we will save the county money in the long run. So let's look at ways that we can save the county money and then use that money for preventive services.
Ms. Hahn, I wanted to ask you, the LA County Registrar, I guess, determined you exceeded the maximum amount you could raise from political action committees. The cap was $150,000. You took $440,000 from PACs. That's as of August. I don't know what's updated. And your campaign said it assumed from the letter the registrar sent, I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but that all fundraising caps were removed. That's why you accepted the money. But the question I have is, have you repaid the money to the donors that was over the capped amount?
Right. Thank you for that question. I want to just for a second say how we got here in this situation. When someone like Steve, who is a millionaire, attempts to buy a seat on the County Board of Supervisors, what happens is there is a rule that is triggered to attempt to level the playing field for others in the same campaign. And the registrar recorder sent me a letter and said, as a result of Steve putting in $1 million, all limits have been lifted in your race. It was underlined and bolded. So I believed, and my campaign believed, that we were following the county's...
That included PACs.
Right. About 6 weeks later, we got another letter from the county saying, our bad, we didn't make it clear that you cannot raise above $150,000 for political action committee. And this is where the firefighters spend their money, the nurses, the teachers.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to get too...
Yeah, so I'm just saying...
Has it been repaid
so,
at this point?
Every bit of it has... Once we were told that that we had made a mistake, we've returned all the money before the deadline that the county gave us.
All right. Mr. Napolitano, Ms. Hahn's
Can
yeah.
I follow up on that?
Yes, yes.
Because the deadline in the code says 30 days, but because they fought paying it back, it was extended to 70 days. So, it wasn't like, oh, here, we're going to work as hard as we can within the code to pay that. The code, these are very seasoned professional consultants that she has, and she's run for several different campaigns. The code is very clear. It's an entirely separate part of the code that talks about the PAC, which has nothing about lifting the caps off the PAC. So when you talk about buying a seat, I know you can't buy a seat on the Board of Supervisors, but what could have happened is stealing a seat on the Board of Supervisors by using, if my efforts did not force a runoff in this election, she would have won in June with a third of her money from illegal contributions from special interests. And that would have shortchanged every voter out there.
But she has paid, her campaign's paid it back, right?
Like I said,
Okay, hold on.
my point was never that she didn't pay it back. My point was that she could have won in June with a third of her money coming from illegal campaign contributions from special interests, which would have shortchanged the voice and the vote of people across the district.
Ms. Hahn.
Well, I will just say that I didn't fight the rule. We just asked for a clarification because it was hard for us to believe that there would be a rule that would allow millionaires and corporations and businesses to give unlimited money, but wouldn't allow the teachers and the firefighters and the nurses and the SEIU workers to have a voice in electing the next county supervisor. So when we just said, are you sure that this is correct? Then they said, yes, it's correct, and we're going to give you to October 19th. Unfortunately, my opponent sued me in the midst of that, even though I was paying the money back, and it kind of was a frivolous lawsuit and took up county taxpayer money for the courts, and the judge agreed with me and said, she's paying it back, what's your problem?
Hold on, I have to say that, Mr. Napolitano, hold on a moment, because Bob Stern, whom we all know from the Center for Governmental Studies, in what I read in newspaper accounts of this, said the statute is pretty clear on this. You do have seasoned professionals working with you. And he said it really wasn't clear how a mistake like this was made. So he's a disinterested third party without a horse in this race who said that. So
if you got a letter from the county register recorder, Dean Logan himself, it wasn't a staffer, who said, Ms. Hahn, all limits are lifted in your campaign because Steve is funding his own campaign to the tune of $1 million. That's what we were following.
Okay.
We've cleared it up. We've cleared it up. Once they told me that was not correct, I've given all the money back.
I'd like to move on at this point. Okay. Let's hear from another KPCC listener question.
This is Lisbeth from City of Whittier. Since Angelinos in District 4 travel across LA County for leisure, business, and education, what is your position on how to improve transportation infrastructure for the entire county?
So, Mr. Napolitano?
And that was my point earlier with Measure M, is that the 4th District needs its fair share. If you've ever been on the 60 freeway at 5 in the afternoon on a Friday night, you know that the folks in Diamond Bar and Rowland Heights and Hacienda Heights are sitting in a parking lot, what's called they call it a freeway, but it's really a parking lot. And these folks need traffic relief. They need rail that goes out there. There is no rail plan there anytime soon. They need someone fighting for them. I've been fighting for them. The Gold Line should be extended to Whittier. It should be extended to Rowland Heights. I support the Gold Line extension out there. I also support extension of the Green Line down to San Pedro and then connected to the Blue Line. But the problem is that the focus is, this is an LA City measure that is focused on the LA City's west side, and with a project, the Sepulveda Underpass project, which would be to the tune of $6 billion or more dollars, and most likely by the time it becomes a construction project, should be $12 billion. And so that shortchanges the rest of the county. They've had rail, they've had traffic relief. We need it out here.
All right, Ms. Hahn.
Well, I sympathize with the caller. I've been driving a lot around this district the last couple of years, and the traffic is getting worse. Many people are not enjoying the quality of life because of the traffic congestion in Los Angeles County. A lot of people on the weekends will limit their entertainment opportunities because they don't want to drive so far to go see a play, to go see a concert, to go to a sporting event. We definitely have to do some big things to build a 21st century infrastructure project that connects the county and moves traffic. I think Measure M is not perfect, but it will raise $120 billion to build these projects. And I think it's a mistake to pass that up and hope that one day we'll be able to get that again. I plan to fight as a county supervisor on the Metro Board for the 4th District, and we can fast track these projects. The other thing I think we can do right now, and I've been a champion on this, is the traffic coming in and out of the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. It was my idea several years ago to begin moving that cargo off peak. We used to just move that cargo from 8 to 5, so all of us commuters on the roads fought with the trucks who were also carrying the cargo. We should move more of that cargo in the evenings and on the weekends. We're moving about 45% of it now under a program that I champion. I'd like to see that percentage increase, and I would also like us to see more cargo on the rails and less trucks that are clogging up our freeways and highways. And I think that'll help move traffic.
Want to add anything to yours, Mr. Napolitano?
Well, I thoroughly agree that we need to move goods and people in and out of the ports quicker, but we're not running for supervisor of the ports, and the caller is in Whittier. The caller is in Whittier. And again, this is a Measure M is a city of LA measure. It benefits them. No one is providing traffic relief for these folks. They deserve it as well. And my opponent's support of Measure M is not going to help that person in Whittier get home any faster.
Well, and the ports,
I'll say this too, though.
But
the
ports do have a region.
Right.
The trucks don't all stay at the port.
But there's more to it than that, because these folks, and the folks who are saying, oh, you're not going to be able to have this chance again, that's the exact same thing they said about Measure J, which was just 2 years ago, which was another half-cent sales tax for transportation. That was rejected by the voters, and here we are 2 years later with another plan that shortchanges the 4th District.
Quick comment,
Well,
Ms.
I've been in Whittier, and all along the routes in and out of Whittier, we do see trucks carrying cargo. This is a regional problem, and it needs a regional solution. And I think everything will play a part in easing traffic congestion in this county, and I'm going to fight for that.
2 weeks ago, a widespread Edison power outage caused flaring at the Torrance Refinery Company. Residents there were told around the refinery to shelter in place and until it was determined the air was safe. This district has large refineries, some of the biggest in the country. They give residents concerns about their safety. What role do you see the county playing, if any, in assuring that safety of these refineries? And I think, Ms. Hahn, I believe I start with you on this.
Well, thank you. Public health and public safety is a role for Los Angeles County. And certainly the Torrance refinery, as well as Wilmington, has a number of refineries. And I've been on the forefront of working with them in my entire public service career to make sure that they are safe. And that they have emergency responders in the event of any kind of explosion or fire. And more importantly, that this one was caused by an outage of Southern California Edison. I had the Edison people in my office, and I was really strongly really condemning them for that kind of an outage that could cause that kind of power outage at a refinery that could pollute the air. We just have to protect the air that the people breathe. We don't have to make a choice between good jobs and clean air. We can have it both, but you need a strong county supervisor to really make sure that Edison is paying attention to their lines and their circuits, and they don't have these kind of unfortunate power outages.
Mr. Napolitano.
Edison is certainly one issue. There are way too many outages, and that's why I've pushed forward on the Community Choice Aggregate Program, which allows cities to come together and to buy energy off the grid and provide that as a group to residents at a lower cost, clean energy. So that's an alternative for the future there. But really what we're talking about is safety of folks. It's not just outages, it's the refineries themselves though, because this was a flaring. And it was the lack of communication though. We have a lack of communication between our refineries sometimes, too often, especially in Torrance, between the refineries and the community. And that's where the board can come in and especially create and require mutual aid agreements so that when these things happen, we have our health officials online and at the ready to go out there and deal with these issues when they happen, that our sheriffs are there, that our fire department are providing mutual aid, and so that we have clear communications. The problem with the Torrance refinery has been that nobody knows who's responsible for what out there. We need a clear line of who's responsible for what so we can address those issues so that safety is handled immediately when these things happen.
And let me just add that one of the roles that the county plays is they appoint someone to the AQMD board, which is the agency that is looking out for the air quality of the residents of LA County, and that person needs to make sure that they put the residents' safety and health first and foremost.
Now, the LA County Sheriff is not supervised by the Board of Supervisors because we all vote for the sheriff, so he's a publicly elected position. Nonetheless, the county has tremendous responsibility for the sheriff's department. Let me begin with you, Mr. Napolitano. What would you specifically do if elected to this position to improve the sheriff's department crime-fighting ability and to improve its relations with the communities it serves?
In terms of crime fighting, we've seen crime go up across LA County, and we've also shown that when we get more boots on the ground, crime goes down. So we are now about 1,500 sheriffs short in the county, and I want to have a veterans hiring initiative to work with the VA and to work with our sheriff to get more of these folks online. They're coming back from their deployment, and they need jobs. We need sheriffs. They have the training. We screen for PTSD, but we need to get these folks on the streets so that we can reduce crime. They make great public safety officers. I also know that we can't lock everybody up, and that's where we need better diversion programs for the addicted and mentally ill, and better probation programs, because we need to put folks on a better path of education and employment to get them out of that revolving door of low-level crime recidivism. So that's where I want to invest our dollars there. I also, though, in terms of working with the community, I'm a big believer in community policing. No police force, no sheriff's force should be an occupying force in any community. We need to have folks that work together, that are part of the community, that communicate with them, that get out of their cars, that talk to people. And that's where also I think that I support the Oversight Commission, the Sheriff's Oversight Commission. And so working with Sheriff McDonnell.
All right, Ms. Hahn.
Well, I know Jim McDonnell. I worked with him when he was a deputy chief at LAPD. I also worked very closely with him when he was the sheriff in Long Beach. And so I'm really pleased that the voters of LA County elected Jim McDonnell to be our sheriff. I think he's terrific, and I think he's really going in the right direction. First and foremost, certainly to root out any kind of corruption within the sheriff's department. I think we need more sheriff's deputies, and I like your idea about hiring returning veterans. I think that's a great idea. I think we need to pay our sheriff deputies more. There's many municipalities that are taking our sheriff's deputies after we've trained them, and we want the best and the brightest in LA County, and I would be one of those that thinks those men and women who put their life on the line every day ought to be paid really a wage that would not let them be lured to other municipalities. And I too believe in community-based policing. I've had experience in this. I actually represented the community of Watts in the city council in Los Angeles for 10 years. And there was a Christmas that we had about 18 gang-related shootings and 9 deaths. I brought the community together with law enforcement, with our schools, so we could work together on the problems, the trust that needs to take place between the people and the law enforcement. It's there to protect and to serve them.
We're going to close with your closing statements. Each candidate has 30 seconds, beginning with Janice Hahn.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here tonight. And, I just want to say that I've spent 17 years of my public service career fighting for people, whether it came to fighting for better schools or fighting to make sure that the air they breathed was clean or the water they drank was safe, or the schools that were in their neighborhood were good schools, that their potholes were filled, that their trees were trimmed, and that their neighborhoods had a quality of life that they deserved. And so I would ask for the vote of the residents of the 4th District so we can continue working together and really make Los Angeles County the greatest county in this country.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Steve Napolitano.
Thank you, Larry, and thank you for everyone for being here. This is really the most important decision that people who live in the 4th District are going to make, no matter what happens at the top of the district, at the ticket, because nothing impacts your life more on a daily basis than LA County government does. And I've been doing this now for 25 years, been in public service for 25 years, as a former mayor of Manhattan Beach, as Senior Deputy Supervisor Knabe now for 11 years. And we share that philosophy of putting people and communities first. And that's what I want to do as supervisor. I have a record of getting things done, and that's why I've got 175 local elected officials supporting me for supervisor. I respectfully ask for your vote. Thank you.
I want to thank you all very much from the Cerritos Public Library. This has been a special Air Talk on the Road. You can go to kpcc.org for our Air Talk Overtime, where members of our audience will be asking questions of the two candidates. Have a great afternoon. BBC NewsHour comes up next. From the Cerritos Library here in the beautiful city of Cerritos, this is Air Talk Overtime on the Road. I'm Larry Mantle. We're now going to hear questions from our audience members of the two candidates facing off for the 4th District LA County Board of Supervisors race, Steve Napolitano and Janice Hahn. Ma'am, your first name, please, and the community you're from.
I live in Cerritos.
Rosalie from Cerritos.
Yes,
okay.
and we're very honored to have both of you here in our great city of Cerritos. My question to both of you is, what is your position on Proposition 61 concerning the prescription drugs?
Proposition 61, which would mandate that purchasing of bulk prescriptions done by the state of California be at the same rate as the Veterans Administration pays for its prescriptions. A little more complicated than that, but off the top of my head, that's the best I can do. Which one of you'd like to jump? Ms. Hahn, you want to take that first? Prop 61.
I'm supporting it because I like the fact that our VA gets to negotiate for prescription drugs, and I think the state of California ought to be able to do the same thing. That is one way we can actually bring down healthcare costs, so I'm supporting 61.
Mr. Napolitano.
I'll be honest, something like this, especially the devil's in the details, this is something I don't really think that should be done by initiative, so I'm not going to be voting for it.
All right. Rosalie, thank you very much. Sir, your first name and the community you're from, please.
Yes. My name is Yosh from Long Beach, and my question to both of you is whether you will take the Prop 59 pledge to do all within your power to pass a constitutional amendment overturning Citizens United.
And you, either one or both of you can say, I know the LA City Council voted to go on record as seeking a constitutional amendment against Citizens United. Has the Board of Supervisors taken a vote like that?
Not that I recall. I don't think so. In
Okay.
fact, I think if it did, it didn't go anywhere. But here, I'll tell you, this is another thing. I'm sorry. We got 17 ballot propositions, and an advisory one is not one that should be on the ballot. If we go down that road, we're just going to clutter our ballot with more advisory measures that don't have any real effect. I think that's for the individual bodies to take positions on if they so choose.
Ms. Hahn.
I would take the pledge with both hands. That is the worst decision that our Supreme Court ever made with Citizens United. It has brought more money into politics, and we've got to figure out a way to get money out of politics, and I absolutely would support overturning Citizens United.
All right, Yosh, thank you. Yes, ma'am, your first name and community you're from, please.
I'm Lucia from Whittier. I'd like to know if you're looking to provide and extend county resources for the arts.
This has been something Supervisor Knabe, I know, has been involved with the arts. Mr. Napolitano.
Actually, I'm his arts deputy, so I have a degree in fine art. I've overseen his arts education partnership program, which is something that I will continue on. I've also overseen civic art projects and making sure that they all get done with the 1%. What we don't have enough is civic art, I think, in our communities. I'd like to provide funding for civic art. I'd also like to expand upon our support for nonprofits and also getting the arts out of the ivory towers of downtown and having exhibits and having performances out in our communities that aren't necessarily along Wilshire Boulevard or downtown LA. We should have a LACMA satellite. I'd like to actually put one in San Pedro at the old courthouse down there. I'd also like to see more performances in our great spaces, our community spaces. We now have a great community room in Hacienda Heights and Roland Heights, and Whittier, the same thing there. I'm a big believer in libraries, too.
Ms. Hahn.
Well, thank you. I'm also a big supporter of the arts. Again, another sad thing when arts and music got taken out of our schools, and so it is a great responsibility for nonprofits and certainly county to invest in the arts. In Congress, every year I have an art competition among the high schools in the congressional district, and the winning artist gets to hang their piece in our nation's capital. I would like to expand something like that to all the high schools in the 4th District. Would be fun to have interaction between students across the 4th District in their art projects. So, of course, I will continue funding the arts. It's so important to our society.
Just as an aside, your father was, when he was on the board, when the Music Center was built, wasn't he? And he had involvement, as I recall.
Yes, he
Yeah.
did. In fact, when Dorothy Chandler came to the supervisors to get their vote for the Music Center, he said, I will support you building the Music Center, but I ask one thing in return. Every December 24th, I think the Music Center should be open and free to all the residents, free parking, and for holiday music. When it first started, it was 12 hours of continuous holiday music that he wanted to make sure everybody had an opportunity to sit in those nice seats in the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion one day a year.
And that was approved on the last agenda.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I said that was approved on the last agenda this year's
Oh, really? They're
celebration.
expanding it back to the...
No, but what was approved was
That's
the
just going to
event.
happen
Yes,
again.
It's going to happen.
As someone who's been able to host the television broadcast of
Okay.
that, I really,
Great.
really enjoyed it. It's a great,
Remember when
a great
it was
show.
12 hours?
Yeah, I do. I didn't sit for the whole thing, but all right, thanks. Yes, sir. Your first name and the community you're from, please.
Kirik from Cerritos. And my question is, with 25% of all the students in California living in the county of Los Angeles, what leadership will you provide to make sure all of our students have equal access to good schools?
Ms. Hahn?
Well, one of the things I always do, and I support every ballot measure and bond measure that is on my ballot that will raise money to build better schools, better classroom, modernize, get the technology in all of our schools. I hope to even push farther that we can reduce class sizes so our teachers aren't having classrooms 40 students. I would think we should get back to 20 students. That's where we need to get to. And that's important. Every child needs access to a good education. I would also have the county invest in after-school programs as well as before-school programs, because we know that when a child is involved in an after-school program, they are much more likely to do better in school, and they're much more likely to graduate. And I really am going to support that. And I also want to bring back vocational classes in our high schools.
Mr. Napolitano.
I'm an attorney, sorry. You can laugh, it's okay. But I'd practiced education law for 5 years. So FAPE, free and appropriate education, that is something that I fought for on a daily basis for years. And not just that, though, it was also support for our local community schools. But what I'm really pushing, and what I want to do as supervisor, is to support preschool, early childhood education. Yeah. That makes a difference. That provides a foundation. Study after study shows it provides a foundation for kids to do better in school. They get better grades, they have better attendance, they go on to college, and they do better in life. They get better jobs, and they stay away from crime. So I don't want to take over school districts, They're a separate entity. I respect their jurisdictional boundaries, but what I do support is funneling diversion dollars into prevention and having that as an investment. It pays back 8-to-1, 800% investment in our children's future, and that's going to pay back in reducing our incarceration rates and improving our economy 10, 20, 30 years down the road. So I want to invest in early childhood
All right.
education.
We have time for 3 more audience questions before we need to wrap. So Pat Stango, would you please come up to the front? Andre, no. Andre, no. And Marina Escobedo. Marina Escobedo, please come on up, and we'll have your question right here. Ma'am, your first name, what community are you from?
I'm Pat Stanio. I live in Long Beach, and I'm a member of the LA County Commission for Older Adults. And my question is, what would you, as you can see, I'm also handicapped, what would you do for older adults, and particularly disabled older adults?
Ms. Hahn?
Well, thank you, Pat. I am definitely an older adult in LA County, but I think you make a very good case. I mean, we really need to, again, go back to the idea of the safety net, and that includes those who are senior citizens, particularly those who have disabilities. We need to make sure that our transportation, which is another reason I'm supporting M, because that transportation those projects will help our older LA County residents, particularly the ones that are disabled, to be able to use our public transportation to get to their doctors, to visit family. I just toured a new bus today that is going to be almost a zero-emission bus, but on the inside, it was much more accommodating to those who would have walkers or wheelchairs, but particularly walkers, because a lot of our seniors aren't in a wheelchair, but they do have walkers, and many of our transportation has not been as accommodating. So I would really make sure that we allow our seniors to age gracefully where they are in their home. And I also, with dignity, and I also support our home health care workers because I know for my own mother, we wanted to keep her in her own home, and we didn't want to put her in a facility, and it was because of home health care workers that allowed her to live out her final years with dignity and respect. They are the true angels in LA County, our home health care workers.
Mr. Napolitano.
No, I thoroughly agree with aging in place, the importance of that. And we've got lots of great programs, actually, the county does to support that now. What I've been able to do, though, over the years is provide, and no two supervisors spend their money alike. And the 4th District, I've been proud to be a part of, because we're able to push out all our discretionary dollars back into the community, supporting nonprofits, and also providing buses. We provide buses to seniors. We provide more buses to senior groups than all the other districts combined, because we push our money out in the community. That's what I want to continue to do, and supporting nonprofits who help seniors, supporting nonprofits who help the disabled. So these folks fill the gaps. Nonprofits fill the gaps in LA County that the county either can't or shouldn't fill. And so I want to continue that support so that you can have the support that you need.
Sir, your first name and your community, please.
My name is Andre, and I live in Cerritos. So my question to both of the candidates are, 6.3 of Californians are currently unemployed. 31% of chronically impaired are homeless in the city of Cerritos. How does each candidate seek to open opportunities and create homes for these people?
Mr. Napolitano.
As I've said before, I'm interested in doing public-private partnerships to build affordable housing, and then build affordable housing for those who are mentally ill and addicted with supportive services. We have a model that we can use right now out in Marina Del Rey, where we own the property and we enter into partnerships with developers to build buildings and take a percentage of those units and make them into affordable housing. We take a cut off the rent. That's how we're able to do that, but we still make money off it, so we can take that and reinvest it in those developments that we'll make with nonprofits for those who need housing first. I'm a believer in housing first, the Utah model. Get those folks into housing, stabilize them, the mentally ill, the addicted, so then they'll take the services. And we'll provide those supportive services, again, through additional funds, but also by making money off those developments while providing affordable housing across the county.
Where is this facility in the marina?
It's all Marina Del Rey. The county
it's the whole
owns Marina
district.
Del Rey.
Okay.
Basically, that area, and a lot of area calls itself Marina Del Rey, but it's west of Lincoln, south of Washington.
Sure.
That is all
Okay.
property owned by the county. And we enter into leaseholds with lessors who come in and build multi-unit apartment buildings. And for every new apartment building that's built now, they have to provide 15%, 5% moderate, 5% low, 5% very low of housing. And I helped negotiate that. They wanted 10%. We pushed to make it 15%.
Okay. Ms. Hahn, same question Andre
Well,
asked.
you know, chronically homeless is certainly a problem, and I agree with Steve that the first thing we need to do is make sure these folks, at best that we can give them shelter, we can give them a roof over their head. There's no way a person's going to get their life together, or get off drugs, or deal with their mental health challenges while they're living on the street. That's impossible. And that used to be our society's, vision was get your life together, get off drugs, and then we'll get you a house. And I don't believe that. I believe we really need to find homes for these people. I'll tell you who I'm worried about. I'm worried about our foster care children who are aged out at the age of 18 and become homeless. I don't know any 18-year-old who has the wherewithal to get a good job and pay first and last month. I would like to model after a facility in Long Beach. The city of Long Beach bought an apartment building and then made sure there was permanent supportive services and used it to house the 18-year-olds who have been kicked out of our foster care system in the county. And I think we really need to worry about those 18-year-olds and what's going to happen to them.
Yes, Mr. Napolitano.
That's absolutely true. The nonprofit on the board I sit on actually has a home for emancipated foster care, but the funding, again, was cut by the state so drastically that we're now looking at whether we can sustain that or not. So we need that funding to keep those programs going. And we also, though, release a lot of folks from jail into homelessness. And we need to relook at that. And that's why the idea of incarceration, the idea of diversion and probation for a lot of these folks, and having them put on a path of education and employment is going to help prevent that homelessness. But we have to do that while they're in, because when you're in jail, you lose your job, you lose your house. So we release them out into homelessness, and we have to stop doing that.
Okay.
You know, there's a pilot program that may be started. It's small as 50 people, but the City of Los Angeles is going to pair the Homeless Housing Authority with the Economic Development Corporation in the city, so we can pair housing with job training and opportunities. I think that's a great idea. I'm very encouraged, and I would like to see how that works with 50 people, and I'd like to expand that in the County of Los Angeles. Let's match housing with job training at the same time and see if we can really put these folks on a path to getting on their feet.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Andre. And final question. Yes, ma'am, your first name, what community are you from?
Marina Escobar, and I am from Long Beach.
Great.
My question is, if elected, what legacy do you hope to leave behind?
What a good question to end on. That's perfectly timed. Mr. Napolitano.
I'll tell you, and I've thought about this, and what I want to do, what I want to make sure of, is at the end of my tenure on the Board of Supervisors, the next group coming in doesn't have to deal with the same problems that I had to deal with. We need to solve the problems now. We have so many plans that we come up with that aren't acted upon. I'm tired of that. We need to come up with a plan, and we need to follow through, and that way we can end homelessness. That way we can reduce crime. That way we can get more kids in preschool. That way we can have better infrastructure. The problems that we're dealing with today, if we're still dealing with those 12 years from now, I think that's a failure. So I want to change that.
Ms. Hahn.
Thanks, Marina. You know, I don't think about this a lot. My problem is I come from this family where my dad, Kenny Hahn, had this incredible legacy, right? He brought the Dodgers to LA. He built the Martin Luther King Hospital. He put call boxes on the freeway. He started the paramedic program. I can't come close to doing what he did in his tenure. And I have a brother who was the mayor who also has a great legacy. I can't compete with them. I'm just going to try to do a really good job for the residents of the 4th District, and hopefully together we'll work on solving people's problems. And so again, I want everybody who lives here to have the kind of legacy that they want, and I hope to help them achieve that.
I want to thank you both very much for taking part in this. Really appreciate your straightforwardness and taking on these issues and engaging for this nearly an hour and a half in front of the audience. Let's thank our two candidates for joining us. Thank you for coming out tonight to the Cerritos Library. From all of us at KPCC, have a wonderful evening. I hope you'll come out and join us for another event in the future. Thank you so much.